So for you, what has been one of the biggest things you've had to move through in the process of discovering, your gifts and who you are?
Yeah, I mean, definitely my biggest wound, which I definitely feel like has the worthiness piece as a part of it. It's lies beneath the core wounding, but when I evolved through different relationships in my life before my husband Aubrey, we have, for those of you who know him, my husband is Aubrey Marcus. He's like just unimaginably, like I could not have tried to dream a better relationship than we have. But I come from a very stark contrast of being in a lot of very difficult partnerships. And in those, there was, in almost all of them, there at some point was another woman. And so there was lying and betrayal. And I always felt this sense of not feeling chosen, not feeling safe, not feeling stable. And within that is unworthy, and I'm not good enough. I feel like those go hand in hand. Like I'm not good enough for you to love, to not want to have something else. And, that was kind of the story that I sat in for a long time. And it was painful. And in many moments of my life, like catastrophic and just devastating, like lots of moments in my life that I can remember of just like being on the floor in the fetal position, just like sobbing and shaking because the pain I love very deeply. So pain hits like real heavy. It's like Mike Tyson just haymakering from the right side and in the gut. And those moments were pretty brutal. But ultimately, the way that I found myself out of that was actually in my relationship right before I was with Aubrey, where things got so intense. And I recognized that, I went through these patterns of relationships where it felt like I was always living the same one. And I would learn a lot about myself through them. So it wasn't like I was never evolving. But I was never evolving enough to like fully, step over the threshold of continuing to attract the same partner. But what I realized at one point was I'm the common denominator in all of them, Like I always wanted to look at like, how could you do this, externalizing all of my power and like looking at them, even though I still was doing the self-work. But like this particular situation, because we were in an honest but trying to navigate like a kind of three-way dynamic. So because it wasn't hidden anymore, it was, just like there in my face. And I was basically trying to just like survive in that dynamic because my nervous system that did not feel safe or just trust in the masculine or the feminine or trust in life was just like wigging out all the time. But it was like it pushed on the wounds and applied enough pressure that there was this part of me eventually that was like, okay, I give. Like it sort of had to be so catastrophic in a moment that I got to this point of feeling like I can no longer live my life this way. I no longer choose to relate to life in this way, and I'm going to do everything that I have to change the trajectory of my life. And I hope for people that this inspires you to not have to get to that devastating rock bottom moment. Although, sometimes when you're just stuck in a really deep patterning that is born from your trauma from childhood and you've just never been able to like get out of those cycles, sometimes that's what's required. It's the reason why we manifest accidents or why deaths have such a big impact on us, because it completely reorients the way that we're perceiving life. And it sometimes takes those really, really difficult moments to get us to open our eyes and be like, oh, fuck, what's happening right now? And so I arrived to that. And I hope for everyone that you don't have to go through that. But it actually was a profound gift for me because I really, really chose myself for the first time in my life. And I chose to really focus on my sovereignty and what it was within me that was continuing to attract these kinds of partnerships. And ultimately, what I arrived to was also connected to the worthiness piece that, like, I am not choosing myself. And I'm making myself second because I was so passive and capable of chameleoning myself, however the relationship needed, that I was never fully choosing myself. And so, of course, the mirror of my partner, the mirror of the love that was in front of me, of course, they were going to mirror that same thing to me as an opportunity for me to actually choose myself and learn how to really connect to my needs and my desires, my deep need for safety and stability. And so, yeah, I mean, it took a really, really dark moment to get me to climb my way out of the way that I had always been. And, you know, that chrysalis was like, that death was like, I was melted into goo, and everything that I thought I knew about everything was upside down. And I had to just kind of ride that wave for as long as it needed to fully just die away everything that was no longer who I was ready to become. And so, yeah, I mean, if you could actually have walked in my shoes and seen like the craziness of my life before, like, I'm not just talking about cheating and betrayal. I'm talking about movie worthy, like, wow, kinds of situations in former relationships. So for people who struggle with that, you know, I'm not special. I was able to find my way out because I actually had the willingness to like really look deeply at myself and stop outsourcing love, approval, validation, acceptance, you know, to everything outside of me. And I started to be more self-resourced, which is what I actually believe was truly the turning point of my life. And, you know, to really understand that everything that you don't like in your life, you are creating to some degree or another. You are participating in there, and within it, there's opportunity, right? But I think that that's a really important thing, again, to know thyself is like, what is it in me that is calling this situation into my life? What do I need to learn about myself? And that can be a really confronting process. But I would go so far as to say that, you know, the overarching possibility and potential that's available is more self-love, more self-acceptance, more permission, more approval. You know, all of those things were the things that ultimately I feel liberated me into a relationship beyond my wildest dreams.